What if I told you you could grow your own fresh, nutrient-dense greens right on your kitchen counter, even in the middle of winter when your garden is frozen and dead? Microgreens are not just a cute garnish, they are a nutrition powerhouse. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can grow your own. Microgreens are one of the first growths that come from planting a seed, and they are so packed with nutrition that just a handful of microgreens is equal in nutrition to a fully grown plant. For instance, this handful of broccoli microgreens is equal to eating an entire head of broccoli. And while only some of us have a full garden where we can grow a whole head of broccoli, all of us have enough space and time to grow microgreens. Finally, microgreens are so simple and easy. Even if you've never kept a plant alive, if you swear you'll never have a green thumb, you can be successful at growing your own microgreens. So let's get into it. So the first supply you need are seeds, and we'll talk later about which ones are the best to grow as microgreens. Next, you're gonna need a growing medium. I love to use coco coir, but we'll talk about some other options later. Then you need a container that drains. So I love to use these draining trays, but you just need it to be shallow and have holes in it. And then you also wanna have a non-draining tray, a way to catch all the water as you're watering and taking care of your microgreens. Next, you're gonna need an artificial light source. You could put this right next to a windowsill, but it's not gonna turn out that great. So you wanna have some lights like this that you can get really close to your microgreens as they grow. And finally, you just need a lot of water. Now, the good news is you can find all these supplies in our Magic Microgreens kit. I gathered all the things that I found have worked best over the years, and you can find a link to get that right below this video. All right, now all you need is about 5 minutes to get this going. I typically do this at the end of the day, and you're just gonna soak your coco coir. Now, if you wanna soak it overnight, you can get a jump start and it'll take even less time. But this has basically been dehydrated. So we're just rehydrating the coco coir so we can plant right into it. The beautiful part about microgreens is they're only growing to the very first stage of growth right after the sprout. In fact, you don't need any extra amendments. You just need a neutral material where these seeds can work their magic. And that's why I love using coco coir as the base. It's really inexpensive, it's a sustainable medium, and it expands and grows so that I can grow a ton of microgreens with just one of these blocks. I found over time that all I need is about half of a coco coir block per tray. So I'm actually gonna stop the process of expansion right now, save this for a second tray, and then see if I can start to break up this coco coir in this tray so I can start to plant out my seeds. So I'm gonna cover this around, try to absorb all of the extra water, and then I'm just about ready to plant my microgreen seeds. Now, when I first started growing microgreens, I used really big, deep, thick trays, and I ended up using way too much soil medium. And once you've grown your microgreens in a soil medium, you really have to start over the next time. You can move that soil medium, say, into a composter or something, but you're not going to use it more than once. So I've learned over the years to minimize the amount of material I'm using here to grow as much as possible. And I found that these shallow trays are ideal for growing microgreens. They're just the right depth, but not any deeper than they need to be. Now, if you don't want to use trays, if you want to just start experimenting with some of your own containers, I did that too when I first got started. I would get like a salad container or any kind of little plastic thing I had from the grocery, poke some holes in the bottom of it and start growing that way. It's a great way to start experimenting. I had a hard time managing the moisture level of the soil with those and also containing the soil underneath those materials. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with experimenting and using as many different materials as you want to just to get started. Just remember, it needs to drain. You want a non-draining tray underneath it, and you want it shallow. So now we've got this ready to plant, and all we've got to do is take our seeds and sprinkle them on top. It really is that simple. All right, so some of my favorite seeds to grow as microgreens are in the brassica family. Those are those nice, healthy, dark leafy greens, things like kale and broccoli, kohlrabi, radish. In fact, all of the microgreens I grew last year were all in that same plant family. But you can also grow microgreens in the pea plant family, things like sugar snaps, any kind of peas like these. They grow great and are so delicious and fresh in the middle of winter as a microgreen. As we get ready to plant the peas in this first tray, I want to show you how easy it is to just get the next tray going. So I've got this second half of the cocoa core block, and we're just going to water this down and let that start to work its magic as we plant this tray. This really is something you can do in just 5 minutes. So I've got these peas. What I'm going to do is evenly distribute these peas over the surface of the soil. I wanted to plant the peas for you so you can really see the seeds, because honestly, almost all the other microgreens that we grow, once you get them into this cocoa core mix, it's actually very hard to see them. Now, you'll find all kinds of equipment and special ways you can do microgreens online and lots of different kits, but I really have found over the years, this is the simplest, easiest way with the least complicated equipment, and I try to keep it as easy and as few steps as possible, not just for you, but for me too. So as you can see, I pretty much try to almost completely cover the entire cocoa core surface. And you can do that. You're thinking like, Nicole, seriously? You can do that in this case because these are only going to grow to that very first stage. So they don't need the amount of room that they would need if they were going to grow to their full size. So I've got the peas sprinkled here. And trust me on this one, it's all going to make sense, but I'm going to actually take this tray of the new microgreens and I'm just going to stack it on top. And what we're doing here is we're using this pressure from the new microgreens tray to evenly distribute and push down the seeds that we just planted so that they start to have really good, nice contact with the cocoa core. So I'm going to put a little bit more water into this second batch and then we're ready to plant this one too. So this is our Gardenary broccoli microgreens, and this is step 1 in the Gardenary growing process. I talk about this in my book, Leaves, Roots, and Fruit. Microgreens is step 1, right alongside growing sprouts. If you missed that video, we actually have a step-by-step on how to grow your own sprouts at home too. And if there's anything easier than growing microgreens, it's growing sprouts. But both of them are pretty darn simple. So you can see how I'm just spreading the microgreen seeds right alongside the top of this cocoa core blend or cocoa core mix. And that's it. Literally, it's that easy. Now at this point, the most important part is having contact with the soil or this soil mix that we're using here with the cocoa core. So I'll just take my hands and press it down. Even better than this would be a new tray of microgreens. So I might start 3 or so trays of microgreens all at once and just stack them on top just like this. So for this next one, I don't have one going, but my teammate, Sydney, she's growing her own at home. This gives you a great picture of what the microgreens look like. This is about 4 or 5 days after planting. She's got this nice variety of a bunch of different brassicas here growing together. And you could literally just stack them just like this. Definitely don't put any trays on top of this one at this point. Just stack them like this, and that weight actually helps keep those seeds having contact with the soil medium. Okay, so now you've got your microgreen seeds planted. Now what? Some will say you need to cover up your microgreen seed planting with a dome or with something to hold in the moisture. I haven't found like that's necessary, but if you want to do it just for safekeeping or you think you might not be around to keep your soil medium watered, then you could absolutely cover this with a little dome or even with a cheesecloth, something like that, to just hold in the moisture as these start to germinate. You're going to regularly check the moisture level, and I do that simply by just touching this cocoa core and seeing if I see any water or feel any moisture. And as soon as I don't, I'm going to lift the top tray, the non-draining tray, and add water to the non-draining tray, the one without the holes in it. This is the magic of having these 2 trays stacked, is you don't end up displacing all this work you've done to plant your seeds, and instead you just water from the bottom, and these plants will just pull the water up from their roots into the soil medium and then into the seeds. So you're going to keep these watered, keep them stacked, and you're just going to check on them regularly to see when they sprout. It's going to take maybe 1 or 2 days for the kale and broccoli, those in the brassica family, or the lettuces, probably in the basil too. But others are going to take a few more days. The peas may take 4, 5, even 6 days before they sprout. But as soon as you peep down and see that sprout, you want to be sure that these little greens get light on them. And that's where the next part comes in. All right, at this point, pretend like these all have just started to sprout. It is time to let there be light. So you do want to use an artificial light. I have experimented with trying to just put these near the windowsill and they ended up extremely leggy. So we have these nice lights that you can use right over your microgreens. I love these little clip-on lights. You can obviously have a much more complex lighting system, but the tools of the trade, my friend, are getting much, much better these days. So you just use a little clip-on light like this, and then you're gonna have it right over your microgreens trays. And you do want it very low to the tray. You want it just an inch or two above. And then as those microgreens start to progress and grow taller, you can lift your light. Now, as you can see, these lights don't necessarily cover the entirety of the tray. So what I do is I just run my lights 24 hours and I just move them on this side for 12 hours. And then at the end of the day, I just slide them over so that they're over the other part of the tray. The other option would be just to do one tray at a time and turn these lights so that each of them is covering about half the tray and it's covering the entire thing all together. But more is more for me, so I like to do 2 trays at once and just run my lights 24 hours a day. That way I never forget to turn them off or on. But these little things actually do come with a little timer. You can set them for 3 hours, 9 hours, or 12 hours. Now, depending on what kind of seed you're gonna grow, you're gonna be close to harvest in less than 2 weeks. You may even get to harvest within 5, 6, 7 days if you're growing plants that are fast-growing greens. Things like kale, kohlrabi, arugula, radish, or any of the lettuces. Those are gonna be grown up and ready to cut in just a few days, probably just under 1 week. The longest you'll wait would be maybe 3 weeks for something like carrot microgreens or parsley microgreens. Those that take a much longer time to germinate. You'll be waiting almost a month to get to those harvests, but they are so delicious and definitely worth it. Now, before long, these seeds that you just planted, they're gonna start to look like this. Now, forgive me for these being a little crazy looking. I've been out of town for the last 5 days. And so this is actually what happens when you go out of town. I watered them right before I left, just left my light sitting on them for this whole time. And this is what they look like now. So they're a little wild and crazy, but they're delicious and nutritious. When it comes time to harvest your microgreens, you do want to catch them right at this stage. So if you look closely at each of these, they've only produced this first set of leaves. So they've got 2 leaves and they're just about to head to create that first real leaf, and we want to catch it before that happens. Now, when you're harvesting, it definitely pays to take your time and not mix any of that soil medium with your harvest. It gets kind of messy if you have that all mixed in when you're trying to rinse and enjoy your microgreens. So what I try to do is just cut right on top of the surface and not try to pull any of the greens up from the top, because you'll end up pulling the soil medium alongside it. And it's just a mess to try to get it off those greens before you enjoy them. So I do a little clip right along the surface. And you can see how quickly I have enough to make a little fresh salad, to make a garnish, to top on top of a soup or a salad. There are so many greens that you can grow in such a small space. So you may want to harvest all of your microgreens at once, maybe to make one big salad for yourself or for you and your friends and family. Or if you just want to add this to your dishes over the next 3, 4, 5 days, you can absolutely come and harvest little blocks of the microgreens and let the others keep growing. The main thing you want to do is be sure you capture these at their prime instead of letting them get too leggy or move to the next stage of growth. As soon as you finish harvesting the entire tray, it's time to start all over again. So you're going to take the entire tray, the cocoa core plus the roots and the stems that are left from your greens, dump it right into your compost bin, and then you're just going to start the whole process over again. All you'll need is a little bit more seeds, a cocoa core block, some water, and you're ready to grow. And that's really all it takes. A little bit of seed, a little bit of light, some cocoa core, and voila. You have the most fresh, nutrient-dense salad you've ever tasted, and you grew it yourself. See, I told you it was easy. Now, if you love easy tips on how to grow the best, most delicious food, then you got to stick around the Gardenary channel, because we're going to be posting content like this every single week. So be sure you subscribe, you like this video, and then you tell all your friends and family about the incredible things you're going to be growing yourself so they can join in on the garden party too. And I have to say a huge welcome to all of our new subscribers. I am so excited you're here. So if you're new to Gardenary, or if you've been here for a while and been kind of quiet, tell us in the comments where you're gardening and what you're most excited to learn how to grow this year. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly hope that you don't just watch this video, but you follow these steps and you start growing your own microgreens this year. I'm telling you, it is so easy that anyone can do it. Here's to you, your health, and tons of microgreen salad for all of us. I'll see you next time.